Hi, welcome to my introductory course called Mindset is Everything. So I'm going to start with the science of mindset. Now, when I first started to realize how important mindset was in my experience of life, I was doing a degree in psychology and I was in a lecture and they started talking about something called top-down processing. Now, what this basically means is that when we have an experience of something in the outside world, we are in some part projecting our previous expectations, in other words, our previous thinking, our memories, onto that object. Now, at the time, this was actually mind blowing for me because up until then, I thought that I saw the world as it was. Like, I really believed that I was viewing and observing a objective reality. And I didn't realize that my thinking and that my previous experiences were tainting that. And what happened, I was driving home later that day and I saw a truck go past. And what I saw was that it said shoplifting. And of course, I thought, well, why would a truck be driving along saying shoplifting? And I took a second look and the truck didn't say that. It said shop fitting. But I guess that I'd seen the word shoplifting more than I'd seen the word shop fitting before. And so I projected some of my previous experiences, my expectations onto that truck, and I read it differently. And it only shook me because it was so far removed from what you would expect to see written on a truck. And that's when it really started to click for me that I wasn't seeing the world as it was. I was largely seeing it as I was. I also started to notice that depending on how I felt would depend on how the outside world would occur to me. I started learning more and more about how the science of mindset affects our experience of life. I learned that we had something called an autobiographical memory bias. Now, what this means is that depending on our current state of being, it depends on what memories we can access and it depends on how things occur to us. I remember I was working with a junior doctor once and we'd been working together for a few times and she came in one session saying, I think I've always been depressed. And I'd been working with her for a little while and I knew that that wasn't the case. And what I did was I had her look back over her phone and look at some of the photos that she'd taken. And I said, make sure you just look at the normal photos, not just the ones that are Instagram worthy. And you tell me if you think that's true, that you've always been depressed. And she was flicking through and flicking through. And she soon just started breathing a bit easier and a lightness came over her. And she said, I've not always been depressed. What am I talking about? That little, I won't call it an exercise or a technique because it's not a prescription, but that little activity that we did was enough to bring her out of the mindset that I've always been depressed. And she saw that that wasn't true. Because when we're in a lower state of mood, we start to think that that's the normal. We start to think that it's always like that because we can't access memories or even sometimes other thoughts that are incongruent with that state. So that is the autobiographical memory bias at play. The other thing I studied in psychology was social constructionism. Now, you don't have to go looking these things up because I'm going to tell you what this means. Social constructionism is the study of what is constructed by society. So one of the things I very quickly learned is that much of what we experience is created by thought and societal agreements. Let's take money. So what is the difference between this and this? I mean, they're both bits of paper, right? And for you Americans out there, and this as well. What is the difference between these bits of money? They're all just paper. The only difference is a social construction. We've agreed that in the UK, this bit of paper represents £5. In America, this bit of paper represents $1. And when we're playing Monopoly, this bit of paper represents £500. Now, money is constructed by thought. I mean, what good is this without thought? Same as all laws, all rules are constructed by agreed upon societal norms. Now, when you start to look at this, almost everything you can think of is created by group thinking. Like marriage is created by thought. Someone says, I now pronounce you man and wife, and husband and wife, and you're married. You're watching football and someone announces a goal, even if it didn't go in. In the old days, they had the power to say it was a goal regardless. Much of what we experience is created by thought, by a social construction. So when you start to see how much thought plays on our psychological experience, you start to realize that it's worth focusing some attention on the inside, on your mindset, rather than focusing on everything on the outside.